Miserere mihi Domine, quoniam te clamavi, tota quia tu Domine, suavis ac mitis es, et copiosa in misericordia omnibus invocantibus te. Inclina Domine audem tuam et exaudi me, quoniam in abset persum ego. Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto, sic ut erat in principio et nunc et semper, et in saecula saeculorum. Amen. Miserere mihi Domine, quoniam te clamavi, tota quia tu Domine, suavis ac mitis es, et copiosus in misericordia omnibus invocantibus te. The Lord is pressed by the crowd, and he gets into the boat of Simon Peter. He goes a little way from the shore, and then he is free, without being squeezed, but being visible, to speak to the large crowd. It is thought that the custom of constructing large pulpits in our old churches in the form of the prow of a boat comes from this gospel. We notice that it is the boat of Simon Peter, and that too has been seen as a symbol of the church and of its teaching authority. It came out in exorcism some years ago that it was a victory for the devil that the pulpits had been removed, as indeed had the altar rails. These 2 points of encounter, one with the power of God, the Word, Hologos, the Word, energizing the mind and therefore the soul, changing lives by affecting the will, and the other, the encounter of the creature who is nothing at all and has no rights, with the Creator of all, in the posture of littleness, emptiness, mendicity, and beggarliness before the Lord of hosts, before whom he is nothing, and has classically expressed that nothingness in a humble form. Now, there are 2 things which happen there in parallel. The demon was delighted, it seems, and we know this from exorcism, that the physical authority given to the preacher over the people was psychologically removed when that vantage point was taken away. Lay people use the ambo for all kinds of things, and amongst the people that come would be occasionally the priest as well. All kinds of things happen at that ambo which were never meant to, and the pulpit was taken away by a JCB. And so was much of the preaching energy quite often in our churches. And in any case, who has anything to learn? if people start to perceive that he's going to go on a bit, they'll start to fiddle with their sheets and read them. They know everything already, and who wants to learn any more, especially from just a priest? It was the contrary in the centuries gone by. People had little in the way often of learning and certainly of distraction, and actually even in Protestant cultures it was the great preacher coming to town over a weekend who would be the vantage point, the centre of gravity and the centre of conversation for the week following. It still happens in the Bible Belt there in Alabama in the States. People live the event of the sermon, and it is a talking point for the day and indeed for the week. Whoever goes to church to hear a sermon, often in our Sunday assemblies today? The other is equally victorious with regard to the powers of the underworld. The speeding up of that crucial moment of encounter of the creature with its creator in a posture of littleness, emptiness and receptivity, the removal of that has been a massive victory for Satan. We know it from exorcism, and it is something which we need to look at for a few minutes. As when a layperson presumes to get up and give a sermon on a Sunday, as that is completely free of divine blessing, because the Lord will not bless disobedience, and the very act is a counter-sermon, because that person is saying, I am above the church, I am above God, I have my own message. That's virtually what the saying is. As to when it comes to the way we handle the Holy of Holies, something not dissimilar is actually taking place. The Lord, as we see in good, healthy, charismatic renewal, needs time and space and an atmosphere to heal the soul. And when gentle music and plenty of time is given, then healing can take place on several levels. And as in the case of authentic charismatic renewal, it is only those who genuinely have the charismata who are asked to be praying with people, lest we have shortcuts and human dynamics coming in. So too when it comes to the sacramental sphere. Here something strange has been taking place under our eyes. The Lord has given authority, it is his authority, to the church and to that part of the church which exercises it. I want to look at one specific issue. In 1997, an important document was given to the church. It was an instruction inter-dicasterial, that is, several dicasteria in the Vatican collaborating on it, with several important signatures. Of course, Cardinal Ratzinger at the top. Well, the Pope himself was signing the whole thing in forma specifica, John Paul II, but all these heads of congregation and secretaries were involved. And it was something which was meant, therefore, to be taken seriously and to make all concerned sit up and listen. Because it's rare that a document passes through the dicasteria and is worked upon by several different ones together. And this form, in forma specifica, being approved by the Holy Father, is also a point which is made to be listened to and taken seriously. It goes in this direction that because the whole theme is on the issues arising from the participation of the non-ordained in the ministry of the church. It goes into areas where things can happen and others where things cannot happen. And if things are happening, what must make them unhappen or happen properly? All one can do is study the document to get the details. but there are areas which are very specific and actually daily in their application. If one now goes into a parish, even on a weekday, one will find, if one isn't careful, that automatically someone will come up to help, even when not requested, and will express a desire to help, even before the celebration, and will not be amused, perhaps, if they are told that the help is not justified in that particular case. That's precisely one of the points. This document talks about, amongst other things, the question of the normalization of the participation of the non-ordained in the ministry of the ordained. Specifically, it goes into the question of a very large number of communicants, which is the point of departure for any justification whatsoever, and asks, indeed commands, that where the normalization of a situation has come in, where no matter what number is there, people are coming up and speeding up the operation, that be eliminated. And also that the practice of people who are not ordained receiving Holy Communion before the moment of communion in the mode of concelebrants, and we know that what that means, is also to be eliminated. A responsum which we were involved in about a year ago with regard to specific things which have been developing even since is also relevant in this context. The question of the non-ordained going to the tabernacle. That was negative straight away in the response that we had from the congregation in the Vatican. The question also of lay people blessing other lay people at Holy Communion is again abusive. Although anyone can pray for a person, no one can confer a blessing who is not ordained. They're two separate issues. And of course the question of blessing with the host itself is gravely abusive. In days of old, if a person celebrated benediction, if a deacon celebrated benediction before ordination to the presbyterate, he would never be ordained a priest. Any act going above one's grade would be an obstacle to ordination to the higher grade. Now a deacon is able to celebrate solemn benediction, and that is all clear. But it was not at all clear until the Second Vatican Council and its interpretation. All that to say that this stepping over the mark of one's grade is serious. One does see people actually sometimes, when deposing the Blessed Sacrament, making the sign of the cross with the Blessed Sacrament. Again, it's gravely abusive. They have no right to. Now, this question, therefore, of the normalization of the handling of the Blessed Sacrament, even on a daily basis, that is on a weekday, is something that we need just to look at for a minute, because the implications are very grave. It is saying virtually that the worst thing that can possibly happen in our liturgical assemblies is that it be prolonged by 2 minutes. Do we realize what that is saying? We have many important things to do in our day, it is saying, and this is the first thing that has to be shortened. There is also the question of inviting everyone to participate. It's all about active participation. But if one observes what's actually going on, it's very often, if one scratches under the surface, a feeding of the gratification of certain lay people who need to be valued and to be seen to be special. They belong to a special category of lay people, a sub-clerical character and category. They are ministers and refer to themselves as such. Now, what will happen, of course, is that in practice, by disobedience, they will come round upon the Our Father and there receive from the priest as though they were concelebrants, and also, of course, before Ecce Agnus Dei, which is not allowed, but also they will receive under both kinds, and they alone in many assemblies will receive under both kinds. Now, this is actually completely anti-evangelical. This uncalled for category A and category B amongst the people of God. The chalice was withdrawn from the lay people in the Middle Ages because of pests, plagues, contagion and danger of contamination. But it was emphasized that the fullness is received under one kind. Now there is a greater possibility of receiving in different ways the precious blood as well. But the question of only a part of the assembly receiving it is not really looked at properly. That can be called abusive, and a new abuse, because at that point above all the people of God should be the same before its King and Maker. The Lord said, "Take of this all of you and drink of it." He did not make A and B. So if the chalice is not given to a part of the congregation, it's very questionable whether it should be given to others. The way then in which the sacred is removed visibly from what is sacred is also questionable, because for 2,000 years no one would either touch the body and blood of our God or even go into the area where it was, the sanctuary, vested in common clothes. That goes back to the pedagogy which the Holy Spirit gave to mankind in all the centuries leading up to the Gospel in the Old Testament, the Old Covenant, in which there was clever and clear indications of the difference between the banal and the sacred. It's all laid down, and now anyone can come in blue jeans or miniskirt from the pews and crash into the cloud of glory and bring God down with a crash to our level. Now, just to get this straight, the result is that there is diminution of graces received. I mean in their perception and fruitfulness. The graces are potentially the same, but they're not unpacked. 1, there is no time. 2, there is no peace. 3, there is immediate talking afterwards, because we've got to the end, which was the whole object of beginning, as quickly as we could. And then we have plenty of time to talk about the football match in church. Christ has been pushed aside, and man, very often woman, has taken his place. Domine memoramur justitiae Tuae sanius Deus et acoisti me a juventute mea edusque in senectam et senium Deus nedere linguas me. Tede laus, et hymnus, tibi gloria Deo Patri et Filio, cum Sancto Spiritu, in saecula saeculorum.